industry is that, beauty is so personal, and it really directly affects someone's livelihood, someone's self-esteem. The way that you are present yourself to the world um, really makes a difference. And clearly, nonprofit organizations, unlike traditional for-profit organizations, are very missions based, and often um, their decisions are driven by what's right for the individual and community versus for-profit organizations that can also have that goal, but by and large, they're driven by the bottom line and delivering value to their shareholders. So I see a lot of similarities. The differences, I guess, would be that the beauty industry, as I know it, was more distributor based and kind
Okay.
of had a third party.
Right.
This is more traditional, I guess, direct to consumer.
Mhm.
We're directly dealing with businesses. There still is, to some degree, that third party aspect, because as we go through partnerships, as I mentioned, Urban League or the President's Council, I guess that would be considered kind of a distributor third party. We're going through them to get to the end user.
Right. Right.
But this is very, very direct to consumer mindset and based, where we want to work directly with the people that we're lending to help them propel their business forward.
That's awesome. And it's so funny. I love the way you said your experience in the beauty industry. Because me, I'm the hands-on one, right? I'm the stylist. I'm the one who's actually doing the hair and doing the makeup. So I'm like directly with the guests and affecting them instantly like that. And then as a salon owner in the past, just with the whole livelihood piece, you help people just establish a livelihood. This is how they make a living from the services that they provide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's cool. And then in the nonprofit space, like you said, it's so mission, cause driven, and it's very passionate. People that
Right.
are working in any aspect of nonprofit has to have a passion for it, and just the how they're going to affect the community that they're serving. So
But
that's
that's
awesome.
also what I said about beauty, because look at you, look at me. I mean, as you'll be hard pressed to meet anyone in beauty that isn't passionate about it. We're serious about our eyeliner and mascara and our hair being did. And not just that, but again, I feel like beauty is a wonderful business because, and in fact, and even getting into it, I was classically trained. I went to college, I went to grad school, and I went to Bentley, now university, in an information age marketing program where everyone was very technology focused, very kind of widget product focused. It almost seemed like a dream come true to go into the beauty industry where the products mean so much. You have really invested and involved consumers versus something like batteries or toothbrushes or traditional consumer packaging, where of course they're important products, but the consideration and the meaning to consumers isn't as deep as what they're doing to beautify themselves daily.
That is so true. Because when you think about it, the beauty industry is a $40 billion a year industry. I mean, that's no small change. So,
Right.
in knowing that people take their beauty seriously, whether
Absolutely.
you're using retail products, which would be drugstore stuff, or whether you're using high-end skincare and makeup products, people are serious about their beauty. So I know this is not a beauty show. So if anybody
Right.
is tuning in, I want you to stay focused. We're going to talk about credit today.
That's
We was just earning the right. We're earning the right. She was in the
that's
beauty
right.
industry. That's it. Anything else you
Right.
want to share as an introduction before we go into the topic for today?
No, I mean, I think that it's a great segue into credit. And again, to help connect the dots for anyone that's listening, of course, we get it as beauty girls. But again, beauty is about how you present yourself to the world. Listen, your credit score is how you present yourself to the business world. So again, I think there are so many more similarities than there are differences. So I'm really excited to jump into tips and techniques to represent and present yourself in the business world, particularly to lenders, in the prettiest way possible.
Right. And to me, that's why you want to present your credit score. So let's talk about it. Okay. So when people first start in business, I always tell them that you are your business, right? You are the product that you're selling, even if you're selling a actual physical product. The first product that you're selling is you. So when you're selling yourself as the first product, I have to buy you first before I buy that product, that physical product, right? So with that, how important is credit reporting?
Oh my gosh, it really is everything, and going with the beauty analogy, it's the foundation.
I love
Like,
it.
if your foundation isn't together, it doesn't matter what you put on top of it. If it's just gonna look at a mess, it's not gonna work. So credit is the foundation, and I really want to highlight that, particularly for LLCs, which are limited liability companies, um, and for the audience, for myself, for you, businesses that are solely run. Yes, you do have limited liability through your corporate structure, but ultimately, that business credit is your credit. And, coming into this nonprofit kind of financial lending space, which again, finance and all the regulation that's behind it wasn't necessarily my wheelhouse. I think that was the thing that most surprised me. I also have a small business for outofsighthair.com for anyone that's interested. It is a hair product. But I established my EIN, I got my LLC, and I immediately, I got my Dun and Bradstreet number, and I immediately went to work building my business credit because I thought that was the most important thing to help me access credit lines and access to capital. And I want to be clear, it is important. All those steps that I mentioned are essential to formalize your business. You need an EIN number. You should have a business address, a business phone number. And you should get a Dun and Bradstreet number. That's nice. But what's absolutely necessary is to ensure that your personal credit score is in the very good category, particularly as a small entrepreneur. And to give numbers, generally we like to see 640 and up. I always recommend for anyone personally to strive to be 700 and up. And we can talk about what actually gets you there. But first and foremost, it does really boil down to ensuring that any financial obligation that you have is paid on time, and keeping an eye out to that ever important ratio, which we call the debt to availability. Yes, the debt to income available credit ratio. So for example, if you have $100 available credit, you don't want to max that out and have the fact that you borrowed $100 on your credit report. You want to strive to keep that under $30, and ideally I say $15. Ideally from a personal standpoint, and again, this is just Fae Harris speaking to your audience. I really encourage people to treat credit like cash. It's always great to float the $100 purchase, but you should have that $100 to pay for it. So within that 30 days, if you charge $100, pay off $100. The other little tips included in that is, credit lines are reported on a 30-day cycle. That doesn't always coincide with the calendar cycles, meaning, your due date could be the 15th. So it's being reported on the 15th or 18th. Know that so that you understand where your balance is on the day that your balance is being reported, because if you borrowed $100 and they reported that, but the next day you paid it off, you're not going to see that until the next cycle. So there's just, in general, there's so much need to look at the details and make sure that you're really paying attention to what's going on with any credit line that you have in terms of the terms, the interest rate, your due date, when it's being reported.
Yeah, so let's stay there on the credit worthiness, the credit limit for a minute, right? Because I think a lot of people don't understand that. So when you have a credit limit, let's say if you have 5 credit cards, they're all $5,000. That means you got $20,000 out there. So when a creditor looks at that, does that mean at any given time you can be $20,000 in debt?
Yes, if you've maxed it out.
Right.
So what, in 5 cards at 5,000 is 25,000. So what I would say is, 10% of that is 2,500. 10 to 15%, I believe, will always keep you, in terms of carrying, 10 to 15% of what you have available will keep you in a very good position.
Right.
Ideally, and it's so chicken and egg because and this from first establishing credit, it's like they give it to people who don't need it. But if you think about it from a lender's point of view, I want to lend to people who really don't need it because I know they can pay me back. The whole thing about lending is lenders always think about risk. What's the risk of me giving you money and you not paying me back? Okay, so if I make you a loan and you really don't need it, then generally at any time you can just pay me back, and I feel very comfortable about that. Versus if I make you a loan and I notice that you've been running to Teresa and other people to get, it's like, do you really have it, or are you going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul? And at any given time I could be Peter or Paul. So I as a lender, we like to mitigate the risks of lending. So, I'm not sure, your question was if you have $25,000 available and you've maxed it out, that's really not the place to be.
That's my thought, because my thought was like, okay, so a lot of times people say, well, I have all these various credit cards. That's me, I don't do that. But if you do, and I say, if a lender is looking at your credit, so first of all, as a small business owner, like you said, ideally a LLC, they're looking at 2 factors. They're looking at your personal income and they're looking at your business revenue. So they're looking at 2 things. Your personal income should be in a good place already, and then the business revenue is just on top of it. So if you have all these various cards, and I'm looking at everything and one kit and caboodle, even though you only have $2,500 in credit used, but at any given time you can be $2,500, $25,000 in debt because of those $5,000 limits, and that's what you don't want to do.
No, you don't. And, I do want to make a distinction, because as we're talking, I'm talking about revolving credit. So we've been backing up, right? There's fixed and revolving credit. So what we've been talking about, particularly with a credit line, it's open. You have $5,000 at any given time. You can borrow all the way up to $5,000. If you've only borrowed $4,000, that means you have $1,000 you could come get anytime. That's called revolving credit because it's open, which is basically what we've been talking about. A lot of business loan lines, particularly like if you go for equipment or anything like that, they're going to be fixed, right? So I borrowed $10,000, you give me $10,000, that's it. If I pay you back $2,000, that doesn't mean I can come get $2,000 more. You pay me, you lend me $10,000 at one time. That's called fixed, and then in that fixed scenario, you generally have a term, you have a time frame over which you're supposed to pay that back. And the interest rate, which is basically the incentive that the lender has to give you that loan. I mean, even though we all are mission-based and nonprofit, it's hard to make a living off of free. So everybody has to make a little something. And basically that's the interest rate. So what lenders charge you for interest rate is their incentive to lend, and what they make off of giving you that. So if it's 10% and it's 10,000, that means me as a lender, I'm going to make $1,000 from giving you this $10,000 over the life of the loan. You would have actually ended up paying 11,000 versus 10, which is another reason going back to in a revolving credit scenario with particularly with credit cards where interest rates tend to be very high. You don't want to max out or get even close to that, because even though in your mind you're saying, oh, I'm borrowing $5,000, you're going to end up paying back $7,500 because the interest is on top of that. So it's always more expensive than what you think you're getting. Okay.
Yeah.
And you never really see that. And that was actually one of the great things that I believe the Obama administration got into, where they changed their credit statement guidelines, where people can actually see, you know, this is what you're going to end up paying if you actually pay. You know how credit cards always try to get you a minimum. You know, it'll show you, because a lot of people don't tend to think about it that way. But that's more reason why I would strongly recommend for any entrepreneur coming out to just always think in terms of cash, even when you are establishing trade lines. And going back to the steps that we talked about when you're first formalizing your business, in terms of getting the DMV number and getting a bank account, and, you know, getting a physical address and a phone number, it is a great idea to get a business trade line. And what that means is something that you are using for your business that's actually reporting. So for example, I was talking to a gentleman, and he talked about how he got a Shell gas card for his company. And, you know, it's not like he was in the rental car business, but the Shell gas card reports to business credit agencies so they can see how he handles that obligation. And that's very important to show that your business is credit worthy. But one of the reasons why I am talking today to the audience about personal credit versus business credit is when I spoke to my loan officer and told him I was coming on the show and did he have any tips, it was very surprising where he said to me, you know, here's the thing about business credit, Faye. It's nice, but not really necessary. I don't really look at it. This is what the guy who's approving applications said to me. And I was like, what? But he said, here's the thing. People know that the lenders have more confidence in personal credit because the way that personal credit is reported is very tight. It's always reported, you know, you've got utilities, your personal, your mortgages, your education loans. There's so many ways that you can build your personal credit profile. Not every vendor reports to a business agency, you know, so when you're building your business credit, you really want to make sure that any line that you're opening for your business is actually reported. You know, because for example, if you own a catering company and, you know, you buy your bread from Fae, and you've been buying from me every year, but I'm not reporting to a business credit agency. So no one really knows that. So this is going back to the gentleman who had the Shell gas card for his business. That was a card that is reported, and you can find out what vendors do report to agencies. But actually, he said, one of the challenges with business credit is, in general, there's just a lack of trade lines that are reported. Okay. And you don't find that as much with personal credit. In general, personal credit, everything's reported, you know.
That's good to go. That's good to know. So in going back, with the fixed, because you said so much so fast, right? So going back with the fixed line of credit, right, opposed to the revolving line of credit, what I find is with the fixed line, that's pretty much just like a straight out loan, right? I want to purchase some equipment. I need $10,000 to purchase the equipment. I got a loan for $10,000. I'm gonna pay that. Everything is fixed. It's no guesswork. You know what it is. It's all spelled out. And then with the revolving line of credit, those are quote unquote mostly credit cards, or even department store cards and stuff like that. Because that's the big thing now, right? Money, getting your money. Every store that you go to has their own credit card. Every store that you go to wants you to open up a card, and they're going to give you 25% off, and they're going to give you some gifts and all that. So that's the revolving line. And what I find with the revolving line is, let's say the limit is $1,000. When you get close to that $1,000, you look at your statement. Now the limit is $1,500. And if you get close to that $1,500, now the limit is $2,000. So those are things that the viewing audience need to be aware of, that when you're dealing with these revolving lines of credit, they will keep pushing your limit, right? And then, like you said, the interest rate, sometimes if you don't have that 640 or more, like you talked about, you paying 20%, you paying 26%, sometimes even more than that for the credit. So speak about some of those things.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's talk about why, a lot of companies do that, because again, that's how their bread and butter is made. And so it is a game, and it is such a delicate balance of floating and utilizing the credit that is provided to you. As from a lender's standpoint, if you have $1,000 credit line and I see that you're approaching that line, but at the same time, I see you've been making those interest payments at 26%. And you haven't missed, so yeah, go ahead.
Those are quote unquote mostly. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. Go ahead.
That's okay. I will, that lender is, they have all the incentive in the world to continue to lend. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just because it's a for-profit business versus nonprofit, lenders are in business to lend and make money. So when they look at you, and this is why they advise you not to close credit lines, right? And actually, that's why I advise to carry about 10 to 15%, because they, lenders want to see that you're using it responsibly. You don't necessarily want to open up a credit line and just never touch it, because what's going to happen is they're going to shut it down. That's liability on their book, and you're not using it and you're not getting anything from it. So it's a fine line between having that revolving line of credit and using just enough that you're able to show, hey, I'm responsible, I'm paying it on time. And to that point, I highly recommend, even in my personal life, thank God for the internet. Okay. Thank God for the internet and automatic payments. Okay. Setting things up through your bank so that you pay consistently every single month. And even if it's not the full amount, a really small amount, it's almost like anything else in this life, like working out, losing weight. It's about the consistency. It's about doing it every single day or 3 times a week or whatever you do, and not skipping it. Sometimes when you go to the gym, you're going hard, that heart rate's up. Sometimes you're just kind of on the treadmill walking, but you got there. That's what it is with personal credit, and as it relates to business credit, always want to be in that game and playing it, meaning, you always want to fulfill your obligation. If it is just the minimum payment that you're making, as long as you're making that on time from a lender standpoint, you're checking the box. They're going to say this is a credit-worthy person. They're relatively low risk. If I give them more money, they'll be able to pay that back. What clearly, as we know, not paying, skipping payments, or even, calling to challenge payments that could be real, but, you just don't want to pay, or co-signing for people who having other people on your card and they're using your card irresponsibly, but basically you're responsible for that. Those are just all things to really watch out for, because when it comes to your business and getting money to grow your business. And so let's not lose sight of it. You know, when we're talking about personal credit, it tends to be for the new pair of shoes or the new dress or for the, 65-inch TV. And, is that really providing value and utility in your life? But when it comes to business credit, one of the first things that we look for is, how will this money help your business grow? And that's why you go to get business credit, because you need to run more Facebook ads. You need that equipment. You need to, hire employee, do whatever you need to do to, ensure that your business can grow to the next level. So I guess the underlying message to that is just always ensure that when you're borrowing responsibly.
Yeah.
And not just for a whim. Particularly for business, I think that makes it a lot easier to prove in any lender, particularly the gentleman that was on last month. My loan officer, that's one of the first questions he asks is, when people come to us for additional capital, how is this going to help your business?
Yeah. And I think it's all about having an action plan as it relates to your finances. A lot of people look at the profit loss statements and things like that and don't think about the credit until they need some credit. But being responsible with credit in your business is knowing when to and not to. And one of the things you said, and I was concerned about, with the young man with the line of credit for the gas station, because they report, how do you know who reports and who doesn't?
That's a great question, and you can ask.
Okay.
And also too, if you even go into Google and they're called business trade lines,
Okay.
look up business trade lines. There's a lot of business, even Dun & Bradstreet offers a service. NAV is one that I'm thinking of that does business credit. But if you just kind of Google business credit counseling, a number of them will suggest different places to start. And generally starter building accounts are gas stations, even Staples or Quill, or business supply. There's a lot of business supply vendors that will basically give new startup businesses very, very small credit line just to start building, as we talked about. So I would recommend that people really start there. And again, ideally, you don't need it, right? It's like,
Right,
they have all the printer paper in the world. Why am I going to open up this? Well, that's when you want to get it, because you already have it. You don't need it, which means you're not going to be using it a lot. But make sure you do go and put a small amount on it and pay that small amount off over time. Definitely, meet your minimums. But the goal with that approach is starting a small balance and establishing your reputation, your face, your representation to the business world, that you fulfill your obligations. You mentioned something, and I wrote it down because I wanted to let the audience know about a training program that NDC offers called Cash Reigns Supreme. You mentioned the P&L, which is the profit and loss statement, which is one of the very important statements that all business owners should be compiling about their business, even on a monthly basis. We offer at NDC a class called Cash Reigns Supreme. It sounds pretty self-explanatory, cash reigns supreme. But in managing that cash and getting it to reign supreme, there are certain financial statements that your business needs to have, and that you as a business owner need to be aware of, because when you come to lenders, that's what you're going to show them to prove that you have the wherewithal to take on additional capital, take on additional debt. So for anyone listening, please go to ndconline.org. That's our website. NDC is Nancy David Charlie, NDC, online.org. And if you go to the menu under products and services, you'll see the Multicultural Impact team. That's the team I'm on, Multicultural Impact. All the way at the bottom of that page, there's a link that says training, and it lists the Cash Reigns Supreme course. If you click on that, you'll have recordings free recordings of the training that we have to offer. And I believe they're free. They're each an hour long. So that's 3 hours worth of information. And it's all really good stuff because they talk about how to put together your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, and then ultimately your cash flow statement. Because, this thing called business is really tricky. Oftentimes, profitability is an illusion. In fact, it's funny, I was talking to my loan officer and I always want to say profitable businesses, but he always corrects me and says businesses with positive cash flow, because it is very possible to have positive cash flow, but still be reporting a loss for your business. People do it all the time. So that's why cash reigns supreme. And
I love that. I love that training. I've taken it. I want to say I've taken all 3 of the classes that you guys offer. And it's so funny, you was right on point with it because it was time for you to do a commercial and you just did a commercial already. So let the viewing audience know how to contact you. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the classes.
Sure. My email address is B as in Bashima, which is my first name, B F for Fae Harris, HARRIS at NDC online.org. So you can contact me there.
Awesome. So yeah, with the classes that NDC offer, they're amazing. And if you're new to the business industry and understanding about reporting and money and profit loss statements and all of those sheets, you're going to have to watch it several times. You know what I'm saying? Because it's such good information. And even if you're not going to do it, even if you have a bookkeeper, even if you have a CPA, even if you have QuickBooks Online and somebody else is managing those QuickBooks Online, it's important for you as the business owner to have an understanding. So even if you don't do it yourself, just to have that understanding is very crucial to move forward in your business. Yeah. So I love it. I love it. So I know I wanted to back up. We didn't talk about the different agencies and what can you do now. You kind of touched base on it, like if something was on your credit and you wanted to call somebody and talk about that. So I know that there's 3 major credit reporting industries. That's Experian, Equifax, and
TransUnion.
Yeah. So let's talk about them and how they communicate with each other and how important it is for you to get your reports on a regular basis.
Right. And you mentioned it. There are 3 separate credit agencies, so they actually all have different credit scoring algorithms. So generally, when you go for a personal credit line, that business is pulling from one, or there's actually a number of different credit scores. Like, some businesses will pay for a service that kind of takes all 3 and does a magic mix and kind of spits out one. So, that's a really, really, really more technical thing, and I don't necessarily want to speak on how that's determined because, again, I'm not as familiar with it. It's not necessarily my wheelhouse, but I will say with those 3 agencies, for each, it's law that you can request your credit report once a year. And, personally, I always do it around my birthday because it's my birthday and it's me. So I would encourage my family, it's my birthday. So everyone once a year is entitled to a free credit report from those 3 reporting agencies, as you listed, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. There are a number of consumer services, like, Credit Karma pops into my mind because they do a lot of commercials, or services like that, where I believe if you sign up, they'll pull it from all 3 for you. Another little hack going with the credit card approach is a number of credit card companies now offer you insight into your personal credit. They'll have a credit monitoring service, or they'll be able to provide you a score. But absolutely once a year, it is something you want to pull yourself. And then that doesn't impact your credit score at all. Generally, whenever you are applying for credit or make an inquiry, that's what shows up, that can actually count against your score. People don't like to see that. And again, boiling down to really simplistic terms, if I need, $10 and I'm going to 5 different friends to ask for it, it's kind of like, because really what can happen is I can end up with $50, So they don't like to see that there's like excessive inquiries on your credit report. That, you want to really be careful about how many times businesses are pulling your credit, because that can impact your score. But you want to look at that and just run through it and make sure that everything's correct. If it's not, it's your right to write the company and to challenge that. And then there's tons of personal credit repair services out there. And, I'm not necessarily going to speak on that. We don't have a relationship or endorse any particular credit repair agency. And, they all vary in terms of quality. But just do your research if that service is something that can benefit you. By and large, it is a great investment. Again, having great personal credit is just key. In fact, what's the quote? I wrote it down when I was talking to the loan officer on my team. He said, yeah, having an 800 credit score, but not great income, it actually better than having great income and low 5 to low 600 credit score. Because oftentimes, if your credit score is high enough, people don't, they're not really asking how. They just know that you are fulfilling your obligations. The more kind of on the line you are, the more documentation, reasoning, all of that you'll need to supply. And I'm not saying that people skirt regulations,
Right.
because certainly it's required by federal law, to have documentation.
Right.
But just in general, having a awesome credit score, which I believe is, in the 700s, really makes your conversation so much easier. It really does, a lot easier. And then generally, if you have that credit score, you're the type of person that has been on top of your finances. You're going to have the documentation, and you're going to have what it takes to actually get that.
Yeah.
Credit line.
And that's very important to know what your credit score is. Like you said, find out, get it on your birthday. Why not? Or whatever day is good for you. It's like if you think about it, maybe every January or every spring or every summer, or whatever. But do your due diligence and know what your credit score is and what's on your credit report. Because with those credit reports that people can look at, and that's who you are on paper. That's like your resume.
Absolutely. And before we go, I did want to talk about a program that we have that we basically kept open. I knew when we were coming on this show, and I wanted to talk to your audience about it. It falls right in line with what we've been talking about, but a lot of businesses have been negatively impacted by COVID-19. In fact, almost everyone has, from things like needing to, get your PPE, your mask, and the sanitization and all of that stuff. And we're really aware of that. So we have a program with Cuyahoga County specifically. And we're the actual lenders behind it. It's called the Cuyahoga County Stabilization Fund. And so this product is for anyone located in Cuyahoga County. That's the very first qualification. If you're a business with an EIN that has been around for basically 2 years, we're looking for 2018 and 2019 tax filings. 2019, this year was extended the deadline to sometime in June. You may have, you could have extended it even past that. So certainly if businesses have 2018 tax returns and their own company statements that we talked about, that profit and
Right.
loss, their balance sheet, and their information for 2019, if they have not filed, that would be sufficient. This is a wonderful product that we're offering credit, a loan, a business loan up to $10,000. The interest rate on this loan is 0.5%. So for those mathematicians out there, that basically means a $5 payment per month on the loan. The term is 1 year. And so technically this is what's called a balloon loan, where you make the small interest payments until the very end. And at that time, in the 1 year though, when a typical balloon payment would be due, we actually sit down and rewrite the loan. So this is the whole purpose behind it, was basically to get much needed capital into these small businesses that have been affected, and basically give them a lifeline to float. And that's what this product's designed to do. The first 3 payments too, I forgot to mention, or you don't make any payments for the first 3 months.
Awesome.
So basically, if we signed up today and we're in September, you wouldn't pay for September, October, November. Then starting in December, you'd make that 0.5% interest payment, which could be up to $5. And you make that payment for 9 months. And then at the end of that time period, we'd come back to the table and say, okay, where's your business? You have this outstanding obligation. What term is going to make sense for you? And, we, based on where the markets are at that time, that's what's really going to drive the interest rate. But it's an awesome opportunity for a business to really get capital for almost, for basically a year at almost 0% financing. And what's so great about this, unlike the other programs that were rolled out for COVID, PPP, excuse me, there's no restriction in terms of what it could be used for.
I wrote that down as my question, right? So the Cuyahoga County Stabilization Fund is a fund that will loan small businesses up to $10,000.
That's correct.
With this loan of up to $10,000, there is a 0.05% interest rate.
0.5. Yeah, 0.5.
Okay. 0.5 interest rate. And my question that I had wrote down was, what is it earmarked for any specific thing?
No. And so what's even great about it, if you let's say you do have a PPP loan, and I don't want to get into that because that's a whole other thing, but and you've had to pay it back, or you have some other business obligations that you need to pay back, this can be used for that. It could be used for any business need. It could be used because now, you've had to buy masks and sanitizers. It could be used for your payroll. It could be used for inventory. It could be used for marketing. It's any business expense. Yeah.
That's awesome for the viewing audience to know that. So you can go to the website. Give us that website again where we can find this application.
Sure. Actually, I'll give you my email address, which is BFHarris. So BFHarris at ndconline.org.
Awesome. Yeah, so give Faye a call, shoot her an email, let her know you're interested in the Cuyahoga County Stabilization Fund, and that's for businesses that are located in Cuyahoga County only.
Right. That is the key consideration. So let's walk over those qualifications, especially since we spent such a long time talking about credit. We're looking for businesses located in Cuyahoga County. As the business owner, we will be looking at your personal credit. Ideally, you would have a 640 or above credit score. And we will need to substantiate your business through your tax returns. So you would have 2018 filings as well as 2019 filings. And again, I'm not going to say that the businesses even need to be profitable, right? Because we talked about that. As
Right.
long as but we will, look to ensure that you have positive cash flow to the tune of $5,
Mhm.
up to $5 to repay the loan. So, yes, located in Cuyahoga County, um, business owner of course, the other thing, I'm multicultural impact. We're the multicultural impact team. So we lend to minority businesses. So Black, brown, female, minority businesses. We'd like to see owners that fall into those groups that have a personal credit score of 640 or higher, and have tax filings from 2018 and ideally
Yeah.
2019. And it's a very, very quick kind of intake form, really, in light of all the other products that are out there in the market, pretty simplistic to apply for. And again, you will be contacting me and working within my team. I have a great loan officer. His name's Osir. We call him O. He was on last time
Yeah.
that we were on this show. Just a wealth of knowledge, really good guy who will basically walk you through the process and really work with people to get them what they need, and it's really important for us at NDC to not just make loans for the sake of making loans. Like we talked about, traditional for-profit lenders really look to make their money up on the interest rate. We're
Mhm.
driven by our mission, where we want businesses that are viable in our community, that grow to a level where they're offering employment, they're employing, they're, reinvesting in their community in terms of their taxes. So that's why we really talk a lot about personal credit, and then the importance of tax filings, and giving Caesar his due, because as a business owner, when you do those things, it just makes you such a valuable member of society, and that's really what we want to do at NDC.
That's
Another
that's
focus, real quick, is we're really looking to help Black and brown developers in the Cleveland market. That is another area where we're traditionally significantly underrepresented. So we've recently introduced a developer academy for
oh.
anyone, yeah, for anyone who's interested in getting into neighborhood development. And that's a pretty significant undertaking. That's when you're taking real estate and you're building on that, either residential affordable housing, or you're building a commercial property. Again, that makes a significant impact in the community, and we would love to be part of projects like that. So if there's anyone out there listening who is in that development space, please reach out to me and let me know of your plans. Our development academy will take you all the way through concept to actually, shovel in the ground. Or you can already be working on projects like that. But that's going to be another important focus for us as we go into 2021.
I think that's great because okay, the first thing that you talk about is with helping the small businesses with the Cuyahoga County stabilization loan is just the whole economic development piece, right? Because in the minority community, that is what's direly needed, economic development. That's what CNE is all about, right? We want to help people grow with the economic development that's going to help the community as a whole. Because if you're equipped as the business owner, as the emerging entrepreneur, as the community leader with all the information that you need, then you can share that information with somebody else that's going to affect the community as it relates to economic development. But then the whole developer piece is amazing because I see a need for that.
That's
Yes.
exciting. It really is. And there's a tremendous need because, typically that's a space where, there's such large barriers to entry that you
Yes.
don't see minorities in that space. It's a lot of legacy. It's a lot of, the people who've always done it, doing it.
Yeah.
And we want to really be part of changing that. so that we're able to build up our communities. People
Yeah,
that live there and look like us are able to.
yes, I mean, that made my baby leap. We've been talking about something like that at our church because it's some land across the street from the church, and we've been communicating with the land bank. So yeah, I'm gonna be calling you for me
I was
about
just
this.
about to say, we'll not just talk about makeup again.
Yeah,
Because we have been, to your point. And we're also in St. Louis, Atlanta, Florida, and other markets like that. Churches are our primary group that we've been working with. A lot of churches are doing that work, and that's awesome. So let's talk.
It's a need for it, because the whole neighborhood development piece, that is amazing. And then with the need for the affordable housing, the senior housing,
Yes.
the special needs housing. So it's like, it's all these various populations that it's a need for it. And we can't just do it by ourselves. One, we don't know how. So let's just be real. Our grandma, granddaddy didn't tell us how to do that.
That's
so
right.
This academy, I just got so excited.
Yes, get excited. And on our next one, I'll be happy to talk about that. We do this kind of quarterly. This quarter, I really want to encourage any business in Cuyahoga County to take advantage of the Cuyahoga County COVID stabilization fund that I talked about.
Yes.
Next time, I'll be happy to share in a lot of detail and maybe even have a guest speaker about that development piece, because to your point, there's just so much need, and there's a lot of cool things that are going on in that development space in terms of sustainable housing and ways that people are getting it done for less. That's really exciting. Really, really, really exciting.
Really exciting. Okay, let's close out. Our time is almost over. We got like 2 minutes. So let's reiterate again. I don't need business credit. I need personal credit.
That's right. Business credit is nice. I won't say you don't need it. It's nice. But what's absolutely necessary is your personal credit. Don't think that you can just hide behind your LLC if you don't have great personal credit. That will affect your business. Have great personal credit, and your business can have great business credit.
That's good. So that's the main takeaway we want you all to take away today. Give us your contact information, Fae, again, before we close.
Sure. I can be reached at BFHarris, BFHarris at ndconline.org. And again, ndconline.org is our website. Feel free to go visit, look under products and services, and look for the Multicultural Impact Team for that training that I discussed and for our newsletter.
All right. Any closing remarks for our viewing audience before we go?
Happy Friday, and I hope you're having a great, well, I was about to say, I hope you have a great commute home, but I don't think people are doing that anymore. But just go visit ndconline.org and make sure you sign up for our newsletter, because we will be introducing new products like the Developers Academy we talked about, and new training. Our next training segment is called How to Get a Business Loan, and it will be just as detailed and helpful as our Cash Reigns Supreme. So stay tuned for that.
All right. Thank you so much for being our guest, Fae. I really learned a lot about credit and understanding about the fixed credit, the revolving credit. Like you said, it's not that I don't need business credit, but my personal credit is very important. So as a small business owner with the LLC business model structure, your personal credit is very important. So keep that together and be mindful of how I navigate through that whole credit process. My credit score needs to be 640 or more, right?
That's right.
All right. Thanks again. Thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for tuning in and watching Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Pastor T. And remember, if you don't network, you don't work. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fae.